Okay, so I'm back at the bus. I'm going to continue building these support feet underneath the platform floor frame. Okay, so at this point I've got all the main legs in place for this front platform. The next step here is going to be to get the stuff that's getting welded tacked up. Well, I actually have to cut 5-inch pieces for the edges too, so that'll actually be the next step, and then the welding. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is behind this diesel fuel door on the inside there's a hole. It's got this cover. I'm going to clean this cover up, the wire wheel, and then I'm going to paint it and put it in place with caulk and spray foam to seal it up. So that's the next thing I'm doing. Okay, so that's got a coat of paint on it now. We're waiting for that to dry. Then I'm going to use sheet metal screws to attach it with some caulk and then spray foam around it a little bit. Okay, so I've also cut some angle, and these little tabs will hold the 2x3s that are going to go under the plywood for this hatch floor. So I've got to think about whether I'm going to put it on a hinge on one side or if it's just going to be pulled up loose and set to the side. But these tabs will hold the 2x3s on 16-inch centers. Okay, so back at the bus. It's a beautiful day. A little bit warm, but not too hot. And got my daughter and a friend over here. We're going to weld this platform. Her friend's never welded, so we're going to give her a chance to learn. And right now I'm just working on getting the place cleaned up a bit. And I need to cut these 5-inch pieces for the side. So that's not what I'm up to start. Okay, so we're gonna get started welding. We got Madeline and our friend Michaela here. So Michaela's never welded before, but she sure looks the part. So we're gonna get started here. Okay, so we got Miss Maddie here. She's gonna do some welding on the floor structure. See your work here.
That's good. I messed up right there, but that's good.
All right, yeah, do the other side.
Yeah, buddy. Oh yeah, take a gander at that.
Let's take a look at it.
That.
Let's see how you did
It's
here.
dummy fit.
Yeah, that one looks good.
You're lying.
All right, so I'm back at the bus. I'm going to get all these tabs welded on and joints welded on this floor platform. Maybe get a coat of paint on it when I'm done. So what I'm going to do right now is attach this cover for the fuel inlet, fuel fill. And I'm going to pre-drill some holes, and then I'm going to caulk it, and then I'll use some hex head sheet metal screws to fasten it. Okay, so I have these holes pre-drilled. Now I'm going to put the caulk in at the seams, get this thing screwed in place. Okay, so I have this cover caulked in place, screwed in place. And there's a little bit of a gap right there that I need to cover up with some metal because of the difference in floor level. But yeah, that's done. Okay, so I've been using this knotted grinding wheel to kind of prep the edges where I'm going to weld, get the mill scale off. So shortly I'm going to put the tacks in here. Okay, so I'm in the middle of welding the platform with flux core. I still have to do these edge supports on both sides of this part of the platform, and then I've got to weld this side of the platform, so kind of in the middle of it here. Alright, so I've been welding here. I'm almost done, and I just have the edge supports on the one side to do. I'll show you that in a second, but man, I'm sweating. I think I need a cold drink. Alright, so I'm done welding this platform except for these edge supports on the side. Got to tack those in place. Okay, so I'm finished welding this front platform. At this point I'm going to clean up, run the wire wheel to get the slag off, and probably hit it with a coat of primer or spray paint or something. So I think right now I'm going to take a break. Okay, so I'm back at the bus. I've got the braided wire cup. I'm grinding the residue from welding off of the joints and roughing up the surface of the metal. I'm going to use some Rust-Oleum spray paint to just put a coat of paint on this, help prevent any rust just from the moisture in the air in the future. Don't want rust stains under the floor. So anyhow, that's what I'm up to today. Just going to put a quick coat of paint on this metal. Okay, so I just finished wire wheeling the metal. Dripping sweat here. It's about 95 outside and probably 100 something in here. So next step, I'm going to get some spray paint put on the metal work here. Some white spray paint. So all right, so you can see I've roughed up all this metal with the wire wheel here. I recommend the cupped wire wheels, even though they're a little harder to control, because you don't tend to get pieces of metal shot at you off the cup. Especially with the cheaper cups like Harbor Freight are ridiculously bad. If they're not the braided kind, they will tend to shoot wires at you, which doesn't feel very good. It's also dangerous. So anyhow, got this roughed up, and like I said, I'm going to hit it with paint. Okay, so I used a bunch of spray paint here with the fan blowing air through the bus. Got this grid work painted white. And now the next step here will be to build the floor hatches out of 2x3s, plywood, and finished flooring. So I don't know if I'll do the finished flooring right away. Probably wait till I finish construction a little further here so I don't mess it up. But anyhow, at least getting a platform built here is the next step. Okay, so I'm back at the bus. All this paint is dry on the platform floor structure. The task right now is to drill some holes in the angle for screws to start fastening the wooden components. There are going to be plywood boxes in the middle. I'll be leaving some room for air venting to come up to the front. I'm going to put diesel heaters under the floor and use inline vent fans, 12-volt fans, to sort of blow that warm air from the middle cavity of the floor around the bus, including up into the defroster. I've got to think about whether that's being routed under the bus or whether I'm going to build a metal box channel up into the defroster, sort of along the edge of that driver platform and over. And I'm not quite sure yet, but that's my plan, to be using those inline fans eventually. But right now the task is to build this floor structure with the wood, plywood boxes, extra support in the middle with the plywood, and then start building the hatch flooring. The flooring mostly won't be permanent, and over here half of this will be opened up for I'm going to have a TV that pops up on an actuator, So I'll have that go all the way down. But the other half will be a storage box. And then over here, this will be open. This is going to be under our couch for the most part. I've got to take some measurements. And then over there, the right and left side will be closed, but the middle will have a hatch and a box for storage inside. Okay, so I screwed this 2x4 in here. This will be solid floor on this half. This half will be open under the entertainment center. So there'll be a cabinet coming up, but there'll be an open space down here so that I can put in a lifting mechanism for the TV. So it'll basically be like a bar height table entertainment center, and then the TV will have the bar top at its top, and it'll lift up when we're not well, when we're using the TV, it'll be lifted up. When we're not, it'll be a work surface or a bar surface for setting down a drink or whatever. Now I'm putting this other piece in here. I'm going to line them that way so that when we access the hatches, well, the plywood will go in this way under this lip. And then these lips won't be as dangerous sticking out. They're a little bit sharp still, but anyhow, I'm going to get this screwed in and keep moving. Okay, so that nailer strip is in place underneath the angle iron. Next, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so I've got the wood on this side. And then what will happen is, this is somewhat of a spacer, and then we'll have the 3/4 plywood coming in here, going down to build a box. And that'll be a storage area. It'll have 4 sides boxed in. And then the floor will be either hinged or will pop up with trap doors. I have to decide on how frequently I want to make it accessible. I probably will go with hinges, even though it might look a little unsightly up top. We'll have to think about that, but also probably depends on how heavy. What I may end up doing is building 2 hatches on each section so they're not quite as heavy, and just leaving them loose or kind of loosely bolted in. So a little thought required there. So anyhow, I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to put a piece of 2x3 going vertically here and on the other side. That'll help build supports for the water tank, for the front of the water tank. The tape kind of got ripped up, but the water tank's going where the blue tape is. There'll be another one on this side as well. So anyhow, I'm going to keep at it. Okay, so I've got these pieces put in on that one and over here, so that I'll have something to screw plywood into, and those will keep the water tanks from shifting with the plywood. Once I've got that screwed down, there'll be some little bit of wood block in the floor as well to kind of support the plywood. But that's where I'm going to stop for today. I only had a couple hours of time to devote. Okay, so I'm back at the bus again. I've cut some pieces. I'm continuing to put these wooden pieces in. They're going to hold the plywood boxes when I cut them. And we'll keep at it here. Get this all framed up, so to speak, with wood, and then we'll start cutting the plywood that will connect to these 2x3s. Okay, so I have these 3 pieces here screwed in place. Now I'm going to cut some for this other side here. Okay, so I've got this other one here done, and so now I think what I'm going to do at this point is cut one more piece right there in the middle. I'm going to leave these ends open. There will be steps that kind of drop down there, and this side's actually going to be kind of into the bottom of the bathtub or jacuzzi tub area. Jacuzzi tub's a bit of a space sacrifice. I'm still hem-hawing around about the dimension for that, whether I'm going with the full-size two-person or not. But at this point I've got it available for that larger jacuzzi. But the tank and plumbing will be exposed at that end, but it will be under floor level. So now I'm going to start cutting 2x3s for these cross supports. Okay, so I've cut these 30-inch pieces so that we'll have 16-inch centers under the plywood. Okay, so that section there is done. I've actually fixed this one in the middle to the railing so that both sides, hatches on both sides, can rest against it. So at this point I'm going to keep cutting pieces, and hopefully with this whole platform set up with cross brace 2x3s. Okay, so at this point I have these cross braces all cut in the middle. The next step, probably tomorrow, will be to finish cross braces in this section over here and this one over here, and then half of this one here. After that we'll be cutting plywood, kind of following the shapes of the angle iron, and then we'll look to fasten that to these pieces of wood. And then most likely we'll be doing lap joints on the edges of the hatches in the middle with 8-foot pieces of 2x3. So my brother bought himself a new toy, which is probably going to be pretty handy for building the bus. We got a CNC controlled plasma cutter. I can think of a bazillion things to do with this. Okay, so right now I'm using the Kreg jig to make some braces for under the hatches. These will pocket screw into the cross supports and serve to form a base for the plywood, and it'll be where the hinges get mounted as well on the edges. So just wanted it stronger than just cross supports. So anyhow, I'm making about 20 of these, and then we'll go put them on. Okay, so I've got these spacers drilled on both sides. These are 13.5, and they're ready for the Kreg screws. They're going to go in between these like so. Whoop, dropped it. These will go in between, and then I'm going to Kreg screw them in. They'll build the frame for the hatch that will be on a hinge. Okay, so this is what I'm doing here, just using the Kreg screws to fasten these together. Got them clamped. And that's how it's done there. So at this point I've got a couple boards done, but the idea here is to make a frame all the way around under the plywood for the hinged access. Okay, so I got this first hatch framed in for under the plywood, and it'll lift up, it'll hinge. Well, let me grab from the side. It'll actually hinge up into the driver's side like so when it's done. So that's the idea. So I'm going to measure and cut plywood for these after I do the same thing over here. Okay, so I just cut my first piece of plywood, 30 by 48. Each hatch will have 2 pieces. I'm cutting them this way just to make it a little easier to maneuver them, and it'll conserve material. So anyhow, I'm going to get this put over into the bus, and then I'll cut the next one. Okay, so I've laid the first piece of plywood down on this hatch. I'll cut the next one, and then I'll screw the things into the frame, or screw the plywood sheets into the frame. Okay, so I've put the plywood top on this first hatch in the floor, and it's awfully solid even without the box built underneath. I'm bouncing on it here, and the whole bus is moving. Feels solid underfoot, but there will be still a plywood box built under the edges. So I'm pleased with this. I think it's going to work great. I expect it'll be fairly heavy. I'll probably want to put some pneumatic struts underneath to help lift this when we want to pop the hatch. But I think the hinge is going to go on this side here. This will be the more narrow side of the kitchen. I have a friend of the family who has a antique zinc sink that's about 7 foot long by 22 inches wide. It's like a pantry sink. It's going to go here. After I go to Indiana to get my water tanks, where they're going to go in, and then we'll build the floor over on this side. That'll be a solid floor that isn't designed to be removed. Although I may still make it a hatch, just use bolts and rib nuts. I don't know, but it's not going to be designed to be removed easily like this. So the next thing I'm going to do here is cut this plywood for this hatch, and we'll do the same thing, get it installed. So that's the next step. So I'm in the process of dismantling this old shelf that my dad built. This wood's going to be used on the bus. My brother wanted more room for his metalworking tools and toys. So anyhow, sometimes building stuff means taking stuff apart. Okay, so this is the over 100-year-old zinc sink with drain boards. You might call it a butler's sink or a pantry sink. But the patina on it's pretty serious. It was sitting under a deck for a while. Got this from a family friend. It came out of a house in Chicago. But right now I'm going to pressure wash and try to clean this up a little bit. I want some patina on it, but you know, I'm not looking for quite this much. Okay, so this is after a quick spray with a pressure washer. Now I'm going to go get a metal scrub pad and some soap. Okay, so I'm in the middle of cleaning some of this orange patina off of the zinc countertop, and my goal will be to blue it, make more of the patina blue. I believe you use an acid for that. I need to do a little research on it, but you know, I want to get it cleaned, and then we'll kind of restore the antique finish a little bit with some bluing. Alright, so I got a good bit of the heavy orange of the patina off. My intention is to get some chemical solution and try to do a little bit of a blue-green patina. If I can't find one to do that reaction, I'll do just a darker kind of blackening reaction to it. But ideally I'd want this the blue-green that's showing up, you know, in the cracks there or in the bowl of the sink. But yeah, the idea here was to get the dirt off and the heaviest of the uneven surface of the patina. And now we'll kind of make it look like the antique that it actually is again. Okay, so I've got this piece of plywood cut for the other hatch. It made sense to cut it as a whole piece based on the measurements. Okay, so I've got the plywood on the second hatch here as well. And the next thing I'll probably build is the couch seat here, and I'll start building the plywood boxes under these hatches. We're heading to Elkhart this week, so I should be able to get my water tanks and whatnot from the RV surplus stores or from Rec Pro. I just wanted to avoid shipping since it wasn't that far away, about 6 hours for us. Okay, so right now I'm building the box frame for our 3-section couch. It's going to be a couch sleeper. It'll flip on a hinge in the front so that the back support becomes legs. It's going to be 14 inches above the finished floor height where the cushions meet it. And right now I'm just doing the basic frame on it. Okay, so continuing to build this couch base. I'm using pocket screws to hold things together. These are the upright supports along the divider of the 3 cushions. I'm going to put these 2x3s across the top on end. We're going to put the plywood on the back here all the way down to the floor and build a box inside as part of the structure. And in the middle will be plenty of storage. Okay, so now I'm putting the front upright in. And I'm I'm going to screw the pocket holes up from the bottom there with the clamp section. Okay, now I'm screwing the back uprights in. One there, and there'll be one over here. Just like the front here, I've got the top piece in place. Okay, so here's the basic frame for the couch. It'll get clad in plywood on the inside and outside, 3/4 on the inside for strength, and probably some 1/4 for decoration on the front, or for a finish. So, gotta put some ends on it, and then I'll be done for today. Okay, so with a few more spacer blocks and the plywood, this couch base will be finished, at least from the standpoint of the structure of it. I think I'll make the plywood tops in 3 sections so that they're easy to access.